Welcome back for the second time. I just got finished recording this video when I noticed that my mute button had been on for the entirety of the recording session. So we're going to get back to it again. This is the first week that I will be taking David Weiss's Flat Earth Crash Course Challenge. For those of you who missed last week's video, go back and watch it, it's great. But I am taking David Weiss's challenge to watch all of his Crash Course videos and then send him proof that the Earth is a globe. Now, I have the proof, it is in my last video, and now I'm going through all 15 videos and seeing if I become a flat earther because of those videos. So let's take a look at the first. But before we get started, David, your website is a little funky. This hero banner does not fit any screen bigger than like a regular monitor, so if you need some help with your website, I design websites, just give me an email at universalmisunderstanding@gmail.com. Now, this first video is just a brief introduction to Flat Earth. It's only about 5 minutes, but there is a lot to unpack, so I will try and be brief, especially since this is my second time recording this today.
Water, when unmanipulated, is to find its level. So whether you look at a cup of water, a bathtub, a swimming pool, a lake, or the ocean, it's flat. Of course, natural motion is not considered and doesn't equal a curve.
Level does not actually mean flat. The water in your cup, tub, or a swimming pool are not actually flat. They conform to the curvature of the globe. That is just so big that it is imperceptible at such a small scale. Plus, anyone that's tried to fill up a cup all the way without overflowing knows that water does bend and not overflow from that cup.
We have 0 authentic pictures of the Earth and they're all composites, and NASA even admits that they Photoshop Earth images.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
We actually do have authentic pictures of the globe. The one in 1972 is an actual photograph of the globe. But what he is saying is kind of correct. A lot of the pictures of the globe that we see are composites of different images. When we send a satellite into space, it doesn't always have just a traditional camera. It has all sorts of devices that measure different frequencies, different wavelengths. The James Webb Telescope is a good example. These pictures are not actual photographs, but they are sensing the infrared spectrum, and they've mapped that back onto the physical light that we can see. So if you were to look at these pictures without that remapping, it would look kind of like this. Just because the photo was edited does not mean it is not real. It's like if I were to stand on top of a mountain and take a panoramic of the valley below, and then you were to say, no, that valley doesn't exist because your photo was edited. That doesn't make sense. Just because it's a composite of different images laid on top of each other does not make the photo any less real.
On numerous occasions, NASA admits that we can't go beyond low Earth orbit, which is between 99 miles and 1,200 miles away. The interesting thing is that the moon is said to be 238,000 miles away, which is a difference of 236,800 miles.
This is an example of flat earthers lying and misrepresenting what NASA says. NASA has said that it is currently impossible to go above low Earth orbit, but that does not mean that it is not possible in the future, and does not mean we haven't had the technology in the past. It's like me saying that it's impossible for me to fly to Europe. 1, I don't have an airplane. 2, I don't have a pilot's license. 3, I don't have the money to do it. That does not mean that it is not possible in the future. In fact, Artemis is set to take off later this month and will fly out to and around the moon and back, paving the way for man to once again set foot on the moon.
No matter if you're on the ground, on top of a building, a mountain, a hot air balloon, an airplane, or looking at high-altitude amateur balloon footage, the horizon never fails to rise right to your eyes.
Now that's a really good point. Yes, the horizon rising to the level of your eye, the higher you go, is indicative of a flat Earth. That's because an infinite plane, as you get higher, you will have just seen more of that plane, meaning that the horizon will always rise to eye level. Now, why does this happen on the Earth? Short answer, it does not. He just showed you a bunch of pictures and said, look, the horizon is at eye level. Yet he has no other instruments proving that those are actually at eye level. Here are some pictures of an instrument on a plane showing the tilt of the plane and where the horizon line is in reference to where the eye level of the plane would be. And as you can see in every picture, the horizon line is much lower. You don't have to have an airplane in order to test this. You can have a U-shaped tube filled with water. Hold that up to your eye and have the levels of the water match your eye level. That shows you that you are looking exactly horizontal with your eye level. If you're on a tall mountain, these will show that the horizon line is far below you. This is another example of a flat earther lying, hoping that you won't fact check him.
Whether you are looking at Toronto's skyline from Niagara on the Lake, 31 miles away, Chicago's skyline from Union Pier, 43 miles away, or even Oahu from Kauai, which is up to 108 miles away from center to center, or 73 miles away from the closest points, you will not see any curvature where it's supposed to be. According to the Pythagorean theorem, which states that the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared, Oahu should not be visible whatsoever, but you can see the whole thing.
So he's stating that according to the 8 inches per mile squared drop, which actually is not a measurement of a circle, it's a measurement of a parabola, but over a short distance that doesn't actually matter. He's saying that you can see too far, but what he doesn't say is that all of these are happening over water. This is a phenomenon known as a superior mirage. It is where the light bends through the atmosphere to the observer. This is a well-documented thing and happens quite often over water. What he does not say is that this is hardly ever seen over land. He also does not mention that these can only be seen under certain circumstances, like water in the atmosphere and a warm day.
In 1887, Albert Michelson and Edward Morley conducted what's known as the Michelson-Morley experiment. This experiment was attempting to prove the speculated motion of the Earth around the Sun, and when it failed, Albert Einstein was forced to form the theory of relativity to overcome this problem.
This is another example of a flat earther hoping that you do not fact check him. This test was not testing the movement of the Earth. The theory was that because sound has to have a medium to travel through, like air, that light also has to have a medium. And so there was this theoretical ether that all light has to travel through, and that's what the universe is filled with, is this ether. And so they are testing this by shooting light through a mirror and then bouncing it off and back, and to see if there was a difference in time and direction that the light was moving. And it came back that there was no difference. This disproved the theory that light had to have a medium to travel through, and that ether was not in fact filling the universe. This caused Albert Einstein to rethink what everything was in relation to each other. He came up that light had properties of both a wave and a particle, and he also came up with the theory of relativity. Now, flat earthers will go and say, well, they're just moving the goalpost and making up reasons why they were wrong. No, they were proven wrong and came up with a theory as to why. This is what science is all about. They test and they are proven either right or wrong. If they're proven wrong, then they go back to square one and come up with a new hypothesis. Test that and create a theory. This is what science is all about. Just because they're proven wrong and come up with a why they were wrong does not mean that they are just making crap up.
The Sun is claimed to be 93 million miles away, with a radius of over 400,000 miles, but can easily be proven to be much closer and smaller by tracing the crepuscular rays back to its origin in the sky. If the Sun were indeed 93 million miles away, it would simply be impossible to have angled sun rays, as they should all consistently come in straight.
The reason that these rays look like they're not coming in perpendicular is because of refraction and dust in the air, making them seem like they're coming in at different angles. If what he was saying about this picture was true, and that the Sun is close and local, and that these light rays are not coming in perpendicular, someone standing over on this mountain would have a shadow coming off in this direction. Someone standing over here on the left would have a shadow coming this direction. And then a third person standing center frame would have a shadow going perpendicular to the other two shadows. And this is just not what we observe, and proves what he is saying about the Sun being close and local incorrect.
According to the globular theory, a lunar eclipse occurs when the Sun, Earth, and Moon are in a direct line. but it is on record that since about the 15th century, over 50 eclipses have occurred while both the sun and moon are visible above the horizon. F.H. Cook, The Terrestrial Plane.
There is no documented complete lunar eclipse when the sun and the moon were both above the horizon. There have been partial eclipses, and that can be viewed by someone who is standing on this side of the Earth at the time. But what he is saying about the lunar eclipses only happening when they are in a direct line is incorrect, and he again is lying, hoping that you do not fact check him.
It's a common misconception that the shadow of the Earth causes moon phases. Even the pastors and priests of the science religion readily admit this fact. The interesting thing about moon phases is that they are always the exact same 8 phases repeated. But if we were circling around the sun, these 8 phases would inevitably be reversed from the summer to winter seasons.
What you're saying about the phases of the moon being reversed is just untrue. The phases of the moon are created by the relationship of the sun, earth, and moon. It going to the other side of the sun does not change the order that these phases will happen on. Again, he is lying to you, hoping that you do not fact check him. Do you see a running theme here?
We are told that the Earth spins at 1,040 miles per hour, while the Earth travels around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the whole solar system is going inside the Milky Way galaxy at a speed of 490,000 miles per hour. And finally, the entire Milky Way galaxy is darting through infinite space at over 1 million miles per hour. Most people believe this, and yet every experiment ever conducted to prove even the simple spin of the Earth has failed.
Not every test to measure the spin of the Earth.
Recently, we carried out an experiment to test the rotation to the Earth. If the Earth is spinning at one rotation every 24 hours, that means that every hour it has to turn 15 degrees. And if the gyroscope is mounted anywhere on Earth, it's going to drift. In today's 21st century navigation systems, they're using what's called a ring laser gyroscope. It is extremely precise. If we could simply get one of these ring laser gyroscopes, we would be able to prove once and for all that there is no rotation to the Earth. One of the people in the community actually purchased one for $20,000. But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15 degree per hour drift.
And that's it for this week's Flat Earth Crash Course. Join me next time where I look at 21 questions and answers for Flat Earthers.